The Silent Revolution. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had never seen such tension. 15 different alien civilizations packed into the massive chamber aboard Starbase Omega, their representatives shouting accusations across the circular assembly. The air itself seemed to crackle with barely contained rage and fear. Commander Vex Kroner of the Zephyrian Empire stood at his podium, his forearms gesturing wildly as he addressed the council. His purple skin gleamed under the chamber's lights, and his razor-sharp teeth were fully visible as he snarled his words. The Drakmor Federation has violated our mining rights for the last time. Their ships attacked our cargo vessels in the Nebula 7 sector. This means war. From across the chamber, Ambassador Thane of the Drakmor Federation rose to his full 8-foot height. His reptilian features showed no emotion, but his yellow eyes burned with cold fury. The Zephyrians lie as always. Those were our ancestral hunting grounds. Your miners were trespassing on sacred Drakmor territory. We simply defended what belongs to us. High Priestess Lyra of the Ethereal Collective floated above her designated area, her translucent blue form shimmering with energy. When she spoke, her voice echoed strangely, as if coming from multiple dimensions at once. The Ethereal Collective claims both systems by divine right. Our ancient texts clearly state that all energy-rich regions belong to those who can commune with the cosmic spirits. Prepare for holy war. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from the Mechanical Brotherhood began powering up their combat protocols, their red optical sensors scanning for targets. The hive queens of the Insectoid Alliance released angry pheromones that made the air thick and bitter. The crystal beings of Arcturus created harmonic frequencies that shattered several viewing screens. Council President Zara, an ancient being whose species had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, banged her ceremonial staff against the floor. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. Order. We must have order. Her voice carried the weight of millennia. If we cannot resolve this peacefully, the Great Purge War will consume every world in the galaxy. Billions will die. Commander Vex Kroner laughed, a harsh sound that made several smaller species flinch. Billions have died before, President Zora. Only the strong survive. That is the way of the universe. The Drakmor Federation agrees, Ambassador Thane said coldly. War purifies the galaxy. The weak are removed, and the strong claim their rightful place. High Priestess Lyra's form grew brighter. The spirits demand blood sacrifice. War is not just inevitable, it is sacred duty. President Zora felt the weight of failure settling on her shoulders. For 300 years, she had tried to prevent this moment. Every attempt at peace had failed. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations were determined to settle their differences through the greatest war in history. She was about to declare the peace talks ended when the chamber's main doors slid open. A single human walked into the room. Dr. Sarah Chen was small compared to the alien representatives around her. She stood barely 5.5 feet tall, with graying hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore a plain blue jumpsuit with the Earth Federation insignia on the shoulder. In her hand, she carried a simple metal briefcase. The chamber fell silent, but not from respect. The quiet was filled with barely contained amusement and disdain. The human wishes to speak, President Zara announced, though her tone suggested she knew it was pointless. Commander Vex Kroner's laughter echoed through the chamber. Humans, what could a species that has barely left its home system possibly contribute to galactic affairs? You have no armies worth mentioning, no weapons that could threaten a real civilization. Ambassador Thane nodded in agreement. Humans are useful for manual labor and simple trades. This is a discussion for warrior races, not merchants. Dr. Sarah Chen walked calmly to the center of the chamber. She placed her briefcase on the speaker's podium and looked around at the alien faces staring down at her. Some showed amusement, others showed contempt. None showed respect. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, she said clearly. I represent the Earth Federation, and I'm here to offer you a gift. What gift could humans possibly offer us? High Priestess Lyra asked, her ethereal voice dripping with condescension. Sarah opened her briefcase. Inside, nestled in protective foam, was a device about the size of a human hand. It looked like a smooth metal sphere with intricate patterns carved into its surface. Small lights pulsed gently along the patterns. For 30 years, Sarah said, humanity has been working on this. We call it a peace field generator. The chamber exploded with laughter. Even President Zora struggled to maintain her diplomatic composure. Peace field generator. Commander Vex Kroner could barely speak through his laughter. Humans want to make us peaceful. How wonderfully naive. Perhaps they think they can make us weak like them. Ambassador Thane added with amusement. Sarah waited for the laughter to die down. May I demonstrate? President Zora nodded, curious despite herself. Very well, Dr. Chen. Show us your peace device. Sarah activated the sphere. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The device hummed softly, and the lights pulsed a little faster, but the chamber remained unchanged. Is something supposed to happen? Commander Vex Kroner asked mockingly. Touch my hand, Sarah said to him. What? Just touch my hand for a moment. Commander Vex Kroner shrugged and reached out with one of his 4 arms. The moment his scaled finger touched Sarah's skin, his expression changed completely. His eyes went wide, and he stumbled backward. What did you do to me? He demanded, but his voice was different now. Instead of cruel confidence, it carried a note of confusion and something that might have been fear. The device creates an empathy field, Sarah explained calmly. When you touched me, you felt what I was feeling. My nervousness about speaking to this council, my sadness about the coming war, my hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find another way. Impossible, Ambassador Thane said, but he sounded less certain than before. Sarah turned to him. Would you like to try? The reptilian ambassador hesitated, then extended one clawed hand. When he touched Sarah's palm, he jerked back as if burned. For a moment, his cold yellow eyes showed something alien to his species. Compassion. This is some kind of trick, High Priestess Lyra declared, but her voice wavered. It's no trick, Sarah said. It's science. For 30 years, human researchers have studied the neurological patterns of every known intelligent species. We discovered that despite our different biologies, all thinking beings experience fear, pain, joy, and love in remarkably similar ways. This device amplifies and transmits those emotional experiences. She looked around the chamber at the silent alien faces. We realized something important. Every war in galactic history has been possible because soldiers could ignore their enemies' suffering. They could see their opponents as monsters, as things rather than people. But what happens when you can't ignore that suffering? What happens when you feel your enemy's pain as clearly as your own? You're talking about making warriors weak, Commander Vex Kroner said, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. No, Sarah replied. I'm talking about making them wise. Commander Kroner, when you touched my hand, you felt my emotions. Tell me, did that make you weak, or did it give you information you didn't have before? The Zephyrian commander was quiet for a long moment. I understood why you came here. The fear for your species if war breaks out. The desperate hope for peace. He shook his head. But understanding enemies makes warfare impossible. Exactly, Sarah said softly. President Zora leaned forward in her chair. Dr. Chen, are you suggesting that humanity has developed technology that could end warfare entirely? We're suggesting that we already have, Sarah replied. For the past 5 years, while all of you have been preparing for the Great Purge War, human ships have been quietly installing peace field generators throughout the galaxy. Every major trade route, every military installation, every populated system now has our devices hidden in routine maintenance equipment. The chamber erupted in outraged voices. Representatives jumped to their feet, demanding explanations, threatening retaliation. But Sarah continued speaking, her voice calm and clear. We didn't ask permission because we knew you would refuse. Every species in this chamber has been preparing for war for decades. You've all convinced yourselves that violence is the only solution, that strength comes from the ability to cause suffering. You have violated galactic sovereignty. Ambassador Thane roared. You have committed acts of war against every civilization represented here. Commander Vex Croner added. Sarah nodded sadly. Yes, we have. And if our plan fails, humanity will be hunted down and destroyed by every species in the galaxy. We know the risks. Then why? High Priestess Lyra demanded. Why risk extinction for this madness? Sarah picked up the device from the podium. The lights pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. Because we've seen what happens when empathy dies. On Earth, we had 2 world wars that nearly destroyed our entire species. We learned that the moment you stop seeing your enemies as people, atrocity becomes inevitable. She looked around the chamber one more time. In 72 hours, the largest fleets in galactic history will meet in battle. Trillions of beings will die unless something changes. Every admiral, every general, every soldier believes they're fighting for something important. Their homeworld, their families, their way of life. And they are, President Zara said quietly. Yes, Sarah agreed. They are. Every warrior on every side is terrified, homesick, and desperate to protect what they love. When our devices activate during the battle, all of them will feel that fear, that homesickness, that desperate love. They'll feel it not just from their own side, but from their enemies too. She placed the device back in the briefcase. What happens when a Zephyrian warrior feels a Drakmor soldier's fear for his children back home? What happens when a Drakmor general experiences an ethereal priest's genuine belief that she's protecting something sacred? What happens when everyone realizes that their enemies are exactly like them, afraid and far from home, and just trying to survive? The chamber was completely silent now. Every representative was imagining that moment, trying to understand how warfare would be possible when you could feel your victim's pain as clearly as your own. This is madness, Commander Vex Croner said finally, but his voice was thoughtful rather than angry. Maybe, Sarah admitted, but it's the kind of madness that might save everyone. She closed the briefcase and started walking toward the exit. At the chamber doors, she turned back one final time. The generators are already in place. In 72 hours, when your fleets engage, they'll activate automatically. After that, the choice is yours. You can try to fight while feeling everything your enemies feel, or you can find another way to solve your problems. Dr. Sarah Chen left the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the absolute silence she left behind. The representatives sat in stunned quiet for several minutes before President Zara finally spoke. Emergency session is adjourned. All fleets will proceed with Operation Final Victory as planned. But as the alien leaders filed out of the chamber, each one carried with them the memory of touching a human hand and feeling, for just a moment, what it was like to be someone else. And for the first time in galactic history, several of them began to wonder if there might be another way. In space beyond the station, human ships moved silently through the darkness, making final preparations for the most important experiment in the history of civilization. In 72 hours, the galaxy would discover whether empathy was stronger than hate, whether understanding could triumph over fear, and whether a small species from a blue world could save everyone from themselves. The Great Purge War was about to begin. But thanks to humanity's silent revolution, it might end very differently than anyone expected. The Great Awakening. 72 hours later, the void of space around the Kepler Nebula had become the stage for the largest military engagement in galactic history. Thousands of warships from 15 different civilizations hung in perfect battle formations, their weapons powered and ready. The sight was both magnificent and terrifying. Commander Vex Croner stood on the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship Eternal Conquest, watching enemy formations through the tactical display. His 4 arms moved across control panels with practiced efficiency, coordinating the movements of 3,000 ships. The bridge crew worked in tense silence, their purple skin gleaming with perspiration despite the cool air. "Report on enemy positions," Vex commanded. Drakmor Federation fleet holding position at coordinates 77 Mark IV, his tactical officer announced. 800 ships, including their new planet-killer dreadnoughts. Ethereal collective forces are scattered throughout the nebula, using the gas clouds for cover. Estimated strength, 600 vessels. Vex nodded grimly. The numbers were roughly equal, which meant this battle would be decided by skill, courage, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. He had all three in abundance. On the bridge of the Drakmor command ship Bloodfang, Ambassador Thane had transformed from diplomat to general. His ceremonial robes had been replaced with battle armor that gleamed like black metal. His yellow eyes studied the tactical displays with cold calculation. "The Zephyrians are positioning for their standard assault pattern," his war leader observed. "They'll try to overwhelm our outer defenses with mass attacks." "Let them come," Thane replied, his voice carrying the weight of absolute confidence. "Our ships are stronger, our weapons more precise. Today, the Drakmor Federation claims its rightful place as the dominant power in this galaxy." High Priestess Lyra floated in the meditation chamber of the ethereal command vessel Spirit of Vengeance. Her translucent form pulsed with energy as she communed with the cosmic forces that guided her people. Around her, ethereal warriors prepared for battle, their bodies shifting between solid and energy forms as they focused their spiritual power. "The spirits demand justice," Lyra whispered, her voice echoing through dimensions. "Too long have material beings dominated the galaxy. Today we cleanse the universe of their crude influence." In the depths of space, hidden human observation vessels monitored the approaching conflict. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the Earth ship Prometheus, watching displays that showed the positions of every peace field generator throughout the battle zone. "Status report," she requested quietly. General Marcus Webb, a grizzled veteran who had overseen the secret deployment mission, consulted his instruments. "All generators are online and functioning normally. We have complete coverage of the battle area. The moment fighting begins, they'll activate automatically." "Signal strength?" Sarah asked. "Optimal," reported Dr. Amanda Foster, the project's lead engineer. "Every ship in the combat zone will be within range of at least 3 generators. The empathy field will be strong enough to transmit emotional experiences clearly across all species." Sarah nodded, trying to calm the nervous energy that had been building in her stomach for days. In a few minutes, they would discover whether 30 years of secret research and preparation had been worth the risk. Either they would save the galaxy from its most destructive war, or they would watch helplessly as the conflict began with their devices having no effect. "Ma'am," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving battle communications from all fleets. The engagement is about to begin." Through the tactical displays, Sarah could see the massive formations beginning to move. The Zephyrian fleet advanced in a wedge formation, their ships gleaming purple and silver in the starlight. The Drakmor vessels moved to intercept, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. The ethereal collective began materializing from the nebula clouds, their ships shimmering between dimensions. "All vessels, this is Commander Vex Kroner," came the transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. "Today we fight not just for territory or resources, but for the future of our species. Show no mercy, for none will be given. Victory or death. Drakmor forces, prepare for combat." Ambassador Thane's voice echoed across the fleet channels. "We are the hunters, and today we hunt the greatest prey in the galaxy. Fight with the fury of our ancestors. Children of the ethereal collective." High Priestess Lyra's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Channel the power of the cosmic spirits. Let our enemies feel the full weight of divine judgment." The first shots were fired by the Zephyrian advance guard. Brilliant purple energy beams lanced across space, striking the shields of Drakmor destroyers. The enemy vessels responded with cascades of plasma missiles that painted the void in shades of green and gold. As the weapon's fire intensified, Dr. Sarah Chen held her breath. "Activate the peace field generators," she ordered quietly. Across the battle zone, invisible fields of energy began to expand from hidden devices installed on asteroids, navigation buoys, and communication relays. The fields were undetectable to normal sensors, but they immediately began affecting every thinking being within their range. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Commander Vex Kroner was in the middle of issuing attack orders when something extraordinary happened. As he watched his weapons strike an enemy vessel, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. Not physical pain, but something deeper, a profound sense of loss and fear. "What?" he started to say, then stopped. The sensation was growing stronger. He could feel terror, but not his own terror. Someone else's fear was filling his mind. Someone who was watching their shift shields fail. Someone who was thinking about their family back home. Someone who was desperately hoping to survive the next few minutes. "Commander," his tactical officer asked, noticing that Vex had stopped giving orders. Vex stared at the display showing the enemy ship his weapons had just hit. There are people on that ship," he said quietly. "Sir, of course there are people on that ship. It's a Drakmor destroyer." "No, you don't understand," Vex said, his voice filled with wonder and horror. "There are people on that ship. I can feel how afraid they are." Similar scenes were playing out across the entire battle zone. On the Drakmor command ship, Ambassador Thane had just ordered a full broadside against a cluster of Zephyrian cruisers when he was suddenly overwhelmed by emotions that weren't his own. He felt the determination of enemy crews, their courage in the face of death, their love for their families. But more than that, he felt their pain as his weapons tore through their ships. "Cease fire," he commanded suddenly. "Sir," his war leader looked confused. "The enemy is in perfect firing position. We can destroy their entire squadron." Thane stared at the tactical display, watching the damaged Zephyrian ships trying to retreat. He could feel the agony of their wounded, the grief of those who had lost friends, the desperate hope of those still fighting to save their vessels. "I said cease fire," he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. High Priestess Lyra was experiencing something even more profound. As an ethereal being, she was naturally sensitive to psychic phenomena, and the peace field generators were affecting her more strongly than the others. She could feel the emotions of every single being in the battle zone. Fear, anger, courage, desperation, love, hope, all mixing together in a symphony of shared experience. For the first time in her existence, she understood that the material beings she had been fighting were not crude, soulless creatures. They were complex, feeling entities with the same depths of emotion and spiritual experience as her own people. "All ethereal forces," she broadcast on all frequencies, "cease hostilities immediately." "High Priestess," came confused responses from her fleet commanders. "I said cease hostilities," Lyra repeated, her voice filled with awe. "We are not fighting monsters. We are fighting ourselves." Across the battle zone, the same realization was spreading from ship to ship, species to species. Weapons that had been firing moments before fell silent. Formations that had been charging toward each other came to confused stops. Thousands of warriors found themselves unable to continue fighting when they could feel their enemy's pain as clearly as their own. On the Earth observation ship, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the tactical displays with tears in her eyes. The massive battle formations were breaking apart, not in retreat, but in a kind of stunned paralysis. Ships that had been trying to destroy each other were now moving closer together, as if seeking contact rather than combat. "It's working," General Webb said quietly. "By all the stars, it's actually working." Commander Vex Kroner stood on his bridge, no longer seeing tactical displays and firing solutions. Instead, he was experiencing the emotional landscape of the entire battle zone. He felt the fear of young Drakmor soldiers who had never seen combat before. He felt the grief of ethereal warriors mourning friends lost in previous conflicts. He felt the desperate love that every being in the battle zone carried for their families, their homes, their way of life. "Open a channel to all enemy vessels," he ordered. "Sir," his communications officer asked. "All enemy vessels," Vex repeated. "I want to speak to everyone." The channel opened, and Commander Vex Kroner's voice was broadcast to every ship in the battle zone. "This is Commander Vex Kroner of the Zephyrian Empire. I need to say something to all of you." He paused, struggling to find words for what he was experiencing. "I can feel you. All of you. Your fear, your pain, your love for your families. I don't understand how, but I can feel what you feel. And I know you can feel what I feel." Another pause, longer this time. "I came here to destroy you. I thought you were monsters, enemies who needed to be eliminated. But you're not monsters. You're just like me. You're afraid, and you're far from home, and you're fighting for something you believe in." Ambassador Thane's voice joined the transmission. "I can feel it too. The human doctor. She said this would happen. She said we would understand each other." High Priestess Lyra's ethereal voice added to the growing conversation. "We are all connected. Every being in this battle zone is part of the same spiritual network. We are not enemies. We are family." Dr. Sarah Chen activated her own communication system. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen of the Earth Federation. Can you hear me, human?" Commander Vex Kroner's voice carried surprise and something that might have been gratitude. "What have you done to us?" "We've given you the ability to feel what your enemies feel," Sarah replied. "The question is, what will you do with that gift?" The answer came not in words, but in actions. Across the battle zone, damaged ships began receiving aid from their former enemies. Zephyrian medical vessels moved to assist wounded Drakmor crews. Ethereal healing specialists shared their power with injured soldiers from all species. The largest military engagement in galactic history was transforming into the largest rescue operation. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Commander Vex Kroner made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. All Zephyrian vessels begin humanitarian operations. Assist any damaged ship, regardless of species. The war is over. Ambassador Thane echoed the command from his ship. All Drakmor forces render aid to any vessel in distress. We are no longer enemies. We are survivors helping survivors. High Priestess Lyra's voice carried across all frequencies. Children of all species, we have been given a great gift today. We can feel each other's pain, each other's joy, each other's love. Let us use this gift to heal the wounds of war. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the transformation with wonder. Ships that had been trying to destroy each other were now working together to save lives. Enemy crews were sharing medical supplies, technical expertise, and comfort with beings they had been taught to hate. "General Webb," she said, "I think we need to prepare for some very important conversations." "What do you mean?" Sarah smiled, the first real smile she had managed in months. "I mean, the galaxy just learned that empathy is more powerful than hatred. They're going to want to know how to keep this feeling, how to make it permanent." She was right. Within hours, representatives from every species involved in the battle were requesting meetings with Earth Federation officials. They wanted to understand the technology, but more importantly, they wanted to understand how to maintain the connections they had discovered. The Great Purge War had lasted exactly 17 minutes. It ended not with conquest or destruction, but with the greatest awakening in galactic history. 15 civilizations had discovered that their enemies were not monsters, but people just like themselves, afraid and far from home, and desperately hoping for a better future. No generation would ever forget the day humans completely ended dangerous warfare. Not through superior weapons or military might, but through the simple, revolutionary idea that understanding your enemy makes hatred impossible. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in thousands of years, that was a wonderful thing.